So you got your eye on the new Ryzen 7. Maybe you're waiting for the Ryzen 5. But what motherboard are we going to pair it with? MSI? Gigabyte? ASRock? Asus ROG? BioStar? Where do we start? Where do we go where do we go to from here? Stick around. Maybe Carbon Talks can help. Okay, first of all, this is not a performance review of any of these boards. There's two main reasons for that. One, some of these boards are harder to come by than a snow cone in the Sahara Desert. Second, I'm really not high enough on the pecking order yet to call up the manufacturers and go, hey, I want to test your board. So this is just a comparison and a review of what each board offers. Maybe it'll help you. I'm hoping it will. This will be a 5-video series. We're doing each board individually. Now, how did we decide which boards we were going to review? It was a very, very scientific method, I assure you. Basically, I took the highest retailing board from each manufacturer, and that's what we're reviewing. So, without further ado, we'll get started. We'll start with MSI's X370 Power Gaming Titanium, retailing for $300 US. The first thing I noticed, this board is bright. The titanium silver over white PCB is very striking. This board would look great in a monochrome black and white build. The next thing I noticed is the power supply to this board. Yes, this board has a 24-pin board power, but the CPU power has both an 8-pin and a 4-pin connector, with this extra 6-pin power at the bottom for PCI. The next thing is the steel armor around the PCI, the DIMM slots, the first M2, and the U2. Again, shielded DIMM slots supporting dual channel DDR4 with max memory of 64 gig up to 3200 megahertz frequency. Now on to cooling. MSI has 6 4-pin fan headers with auto detect. The board can determine if the fans are DC or PWM and has 2 small LEDs near these headers that allow you to determine if that fan is controllable or not. Double red, you've got full control. Double green, sorry Charlie, you get what you get. For fan speeds that can be controlled, the control is via BIOS or software. Also, this fan header here is a pump header supporting up to a 2 amp pump. Again, this header is controllable through the BIOS or software. For internal I/O, MSI has 2 USB 3.1 Gen headers here on the right side of the board. I like that this one is a vertical to the board and that this one is parallel. This parallel header will make it easier for cleaner cabling. Also, the shielded U2 port here is parallel with the board. Again, cleaner, neater cable management. 6 SATA ports here are RAID 0110 compatible with what MSI calls X Boost, which is supposed to increase your data transfer rate by 10%. Along the bottom of the board, there is a 1-button overclocking, which personally I would overclock through the BIOS, but there you go. A reset button and your power button. Next up is 3.1 Gen 2 front panel connector for those cases that have a USB 3.1 Type-C on the front panels. Of course, there's the standard power reset LED front panel header here and the front audio header here. There are 2 USB 2.0 headers here and MSI's Mystic Light RGB header located here. This header can be controlled by either software on your computer or apps for your smartphone. MSI also includes an 80 centimeter or roughly 31 inch splitter extender cable so that you can run multiple RGB strips. For the PCI and M2, the PCI E3.0 are shielded and do support AMD Crossfire and NVIDIA SLI, with the first running at True 16, the second one running at X8. There's also the PCI 2.0 16 running at X4 and 3 PCI 2.0's X1s. Both M2 ports are Gen 3 X4, meaning you get a 32 gig transfer speeds. The first M2 slot is located here below the first PCI E16 slot and supports up to 110 millimeter length. However, the M2 heat shield is only designed for an 80 millimeter card. You would think that it would be 110 millimeter. Is that a small detail, or just me kind of being picky? Who knows? The second M2 slot here only supports up to an 80 millimeter card. A word of warning, and I can't talk all of a sudden. If this second M2 slot is occupied, then this third PCI X1 slot will be disabled, and vice versa. So you have to pick your poison. The rear I/O panel has some very nice features. From left to right, we have the PS2 keyboard mouse connector over two USB 2.0 connectors. Next up, you have the clear CMOS button, very handy so that you don't have to break down your case, and a USB BIOS flash port using that 2.0 connector. Up next is a set of ports that might throw off the purist out there. One display port over an HDMI 2.0 port. Now these ports are only usable if you're running the 7th gen A-series APUs. 4 USB 3.1 Gen 1 Type A ports with an Intel i211 LAN port. One USB 3.1 Gen 2 Type A is here over the USB 3.1 Gen 2 Type C connector. One optical output with gold-plated audio jacks using the Nahimic 2 Plus Virtual 7.1 sound. So there you go. I look at the MSI X370 Power Gaming Titanium. Overall, a very, very nice board, even if it's a little pricey for my taste.